I'm Elizabeth from Sacred Earth and Storm School, and thank you for joining me today on the 20th of April, also known as Easter, celebrated by many as that. Um, and I'd love to talk about um, this very, very important time that we're in. It's already started and it will become probably most intense between the 25th of April and the 28th of April. And why is this such an important time? It's a real choice point for humanity. We are going through certain experiences, facing certain challenges, receiving certain opportunities, and because we have free will as humanity, um, the outcome is undetermined. It's being created right now. And what is the greatest choice that we can make when we have the most awareness and we focus and we're able to have information? And that is really the change for all of us as a humanity, is that we now have access to far more information. And the other really big change is that we are undergoing, as a human, a huge upgrade, a huge evolution in our biology. The earth is going through that. She's already far ahead of us, and we are following with our bodies. And the main change in this huge biology is, it's certainly in every cell of our body, but particularly to do with our brain. And it's absolutely phenomenal what the brain scientists are able to discover now. And I feel it's divinely guided. We are meant to have more information about our brains, how it functions, and so that we can make greater choices around our brains. So I'm going to speak about some of the astrological influences that are always influencing us. Obviously, very important information that we can now actively integrate and choose from, because these are trends, but what we do with it is totally a different ballgame. And also this thing about the brain and how these astrological influences in a way are also affecting our brain capacity, and how we can change our patterns, because with the brain also comes our heart coherence, our heart intelligence, and that is like a turning point for us now. But all of this is really influencing and showing the way to this very, very important time here at the end of April. So let's look at the astrological influences briefly as a backdrop. We have just Mars has just gone into the sign of Leo, and that has been on the 17th. That was a really big thrust forward. Mars loves being in Leo. It was in Cancer, moody Cancer, Cancer that's very emotional, water and Mars being fire. Water and fire not always so easy to be compatible. But now it's in the sign of Leo. Leo is fire, it represents the sun. So Mars is very happy in Leo. But as it's going into Leo, there's a kind of a very challenging alignment that is intensifying between Mars and Pluto that's in Aquarius. And Pluto is the planet of transformation, and it forces us to go really deep and clean out the old and transform. So the Mars aspect with Pluto is very, very much activating now, especially today on the 20th of April, which is Easter Sunday, and it will become exact on the 26th of April when it becomes exact, and that's the day before the new moon, where there's a very strong, very intense, what they call in astrology, grand cross. And it's a fixed grand cross, which means it doesn't give a lot of flexibility. It's almost as if there's a building up of pressure on the 27th with the full moon, the new moon, that is looking to be released, but it's not that conventionally easy to release. We'll have to find other ways to work with this pressure. And that pressure is really within us. So the fixed grand cross of the new moon is obviously in the sign of Taurus. Today we've just gone into, the sun has gone into Taurus, so we're out of Aries now, we're in Taurus. And Taurus is the earth. So that's a really beautiful aspect in this new moon. The sun and the moon both are in Taurus, and the earth, so the more we can strengthen our connection to the earth, to the stability of the earth in a way, even though the earth is definitely changing and becoming far more movable, and there is, this new moon is the closest new moon of this year to our earth, so it's going to have a huge pull, even though it's a new moon, on the tectonic plates of the earth. There may be instability in that way. Taurus is it's beauty, it's a sense of bringing a more benign, stable energy to this new moon, especially with this very strong opposition between Pluto and Mars that's also present on the new moon, obviously. So the theme of this new moon that's coming up, and that Mars is playing out for us already, is individual will versus divine will. What are we choosing? And the deep emotions that are surfacing still, it's been surfacing for quite a while now, but it's still surfacing. And it's all, a lot of people are saying, I'm finding that too, that you're actually just crying, and there may not be a specific reason. It's as if someone was saying, and I think this is such a great analogy, it's like you're moving house, and it's the end of a chapter, and you're happy to move because you're going to a great place, but you're still in the old house, and you're grieving because you're going to miss this house, even though you're looking forward to the new place where you'll be living. It's that kind of grieving. It's bringing things to an end, but also feeling in our human heart, the sense of connection that we have to this house that we're moving from, the memories, the experiences, whatever that was, and reassessing it, looking at it perhaps from different perspectives. And it's also happening with friends, with family. We are closing big karmic cycles. So don't be upset or surprised if things are changing and you don't really know why. You can't put your finger on it. There's no reason, but you know that you are making different choices. You're responding differently to people in your life, to even family, to friends. It's a time of immense change, and it's an upgrade, but there's still the movement of going through the change, and that is highly intentional and also emotional. So to really, a lot of people may be experiencing endings in their careers, their work, their business, a lot of things changing, and a lot of uncertainty, but it's all designed, and we are moving truly into this direction of much greater possibilities, much more ease, much more happiness, the true essence of our being, which is not the individual will, but it's the divine will of our true being, which is that we are divine. We hold the God code. Greg Braden speaks so beautifully about this, and many cultures, they know this. This is like kept in the hidden records, that we may, the perception has been so often that humanity is bad, inherently bad. Philosophers have spoken about this for forever, debating this, look at the state of our world. So the conclusion must be that humanity is bad. No, we are divine. But what has occurred through millennia, as we've been in this experiment of duality, of 3D, is that our brain has lost its capacity to be positively impulsed. So it's actually a mechanical, physical thing. Our brain, and also through our choices, we've become survival orientated. The impulse in our brain has gone further and further towards the survival brain, where we are in survival. And when we are in survival, and this is where Mars is very relevant at this time, is we fight, we dominate, we're afraid. And that is the survival brain. We really don't have that many choices. We don't believe that we have those choices when we're in that mindset. We believe that we are, under attack, that there's scarcity, there's lack. And so the individual will become so strong, and this is the lower frequency of Mars, that, I'm the only one that's important. No one else is. It's not safe. It's not safe to share. I can't trust others. All of those old lies, old perceptions that the brain became so accustomed to and started to reinforce in us. So what is occurring now is that the brain, as we evolving again and we're starting to reclaim our biology, and we expanding that in our DNA, we're returning to a much higher intelligence that's held in our DNA, in the strands of our DNA. We're expanding the 24 strands. We're moving back again to true intelligence in the Aquarian. Is that we're now remembering that we have a heart intelligence. And the brain is starting to remember to impulse first and automatically to that heart intelligence, because the heart is actually the most, as we know, the most intelligent. This is scientifically proven. The heart has brain cells, and it actually gets the information first, and then it goes to the brain. So you can truly trust your heart. It's not just a saying. The heart is more intelligent. It's set up like that in the body, that the heart will receive the information first, and then from there it actually directs the brain. And it's not the other way around. And this is what brain science actually knows now. It's fact. So we're going from the brain, the primal, the survival brain, back to heart intelligence. It's a brain function. And so with that, we can step into that true aspect of ourselves, of remembering that we are divine. We are not these sinful creatures that are lower than the lowest, that are only capable of atrocities. And we can look at the evidence of history, and we can say, okay, those were interesting choices. We still made them. We're still responsible for it. And what are we going to do about it? But it isn't evidence that humanity is bad. Not at all. It's been a function of how our bodies and our choices have reacted together. The brain, the primal brain. We've given that too much dominance, emphasis. So this brings me to the brain, which is so fascinating. And what they have found, and they are finding now, is we have this idea that our brain, we sense something, and then the brain reacts. Well, the fact of this is not correct. What happens is that we have senses, but those senses go to the brain before it even reacts. It predicts. So the brain is there to prepare our body for any event, so that our metabolism function in a way that we can take action, whatever is happening on the outside. So the sensory organs bring in the information of what our experience is in this moment. But the brain is already predicting what is going to happen. And how does it predict? It predicts from the experiences, the multiple, infinite experiences available from the past as to what is going to happen. And then we respond. So we are not responding to actually what's happening. We are responding from a prediction of the brain. Now, the brain, in most instances, virtually, will be incorrect. And the brain knows this, so the brain then adjusts that prediction. And so the body, and it's all to do with regulating the body so that the body can be in a state of responding to whatever is happening on the outside, so that it survives, it's able to function in this reality. But the point is that the brain is predicting, and we can change those predictions. So those predictions, especially where in the past, in our generations, it comes from our own experience, but it also comes from our culture, our historical bloodline experiences. It's vast, the records that the brain uses to make these predictions. The experiences is, we can change that, and especially when it's been very traumatic. So the brain will automatically go to those very traumatic experiences and predict them, because that is seen as very, very dangerous and threatening our survival. So it's the survival kind of mechanism. So that is not really the most intelligent way to function. For us to follow our brain's predictions based on the past, that is now highly inaccurate. That says to me that everything is dangerous, but it may not be dangerous. And so, say for example, if I've been stung by bees and I've had a bad experience, when I work in the garden and I have a bee coming towards me or near me, my brain automatically goes first thing into prediction. This is dangerous. Run. Literally, if the experience was so intense when I was stung by many bees, my body will go, just run. It's one bee. It may not even be close to me, but it says, you're in mortal danger, run. So I can change that. How? Through what one could call exposure therapy, where you start with small steps. You don't go and visit a friend who's got a beehive. That would be far too intense for the body and the brain. You go and you may very gently start to plant some flowers that attract bees. And you can watch it from a distance. And what you're doing is you're starting to create new controlled experiences for the brain to have a different history. And the history now is bees are generally safe. You don't have to feel freaked out. You can work in the garden. It's something that's in your environment, and it doesn't have to rule your life in that way as before. So we are really, the brain is, it helps, what we really do as humans is we are story creators. We create experiences individually through the stories that we choose, and those stories come from the past generally. But now we can change it. We can actually start creating consciously in the moment through knowing how the brain functions and through choosing different experiences. And so how does this apply with heart coherence and heart intelligence? and changing our perception from that we live in survival, that this world is a dangerous place, that you cannot trust people, that we are destructive, all of that. How can we change that? We can start to create new experiences for our brain to know that this is not true. We can start to reach out to people. We can start to create a frequency where we, in the heart intelligence, where we create beautiful experiences. Why? Because it's a frequency. What the frequency is, we attract. What we think and what we feel and what the brain is directed to think and feel becomes the experience. That's the reality we start to create. We have tremendous possibilities and power to use our responsibility to change experiences, to change our life through really taking control of our brain, directing it. And one really good example that I use all the time and that I would recommend you play with is, you know, the experience of in the brain when you feel fear, when you're afraid, or when you feel excited. They've also discovered this through science. It creates the same hormonal output. However, if we direct it to fear, the body then goes in a whole cycle of preparation and distress. Or we can direct the brain and say no, and that's our choice. You can go either way. The brain will believe either, but you have to direct it. You can say, no, I feel really excited. This is not fear. I'm excited. I'm choosing to color this. The story that I'm choosing to give to this is that I'm excited. And you will immediately feel your body calms down and your body is fine. You feel totally calm. Your breathing is absolutely fine, the same. You're relaxed, etc. And this is only through recognizing the kind of potential emotion, which is the story, which is in a way the prediction from the brain, and changing it and saying, I'm choosing it to be this. Why? Because this is what I would prefer to have. And this is what then will manifest in how I'm going to perceive the world and how I'm going to live and how it's going to be my experience. And it's that kind of simple, in a way. If we just start to understand and start to remember how our body functions. And this is what the earth would really love us to know and to become aware of, you know, that we can start to enjoy our bodies. We can start to have this heart-brain coherence where everything is in balance and we can, you know, feel calm about life. Because the other thing about the brain is, you know, when it's quite a limited situation, the brain will have a few predictions and it's fine. When we have a huge amount of uncertainty, which is happening for us now, you know, so much of what we thought we knew and the way we've lived has changed and is still changing and will change even more. So the brain can feel very easily overwhelmed now because it now has to be hundreds of predictions because there are so few almost certainties, as it were, that it can hang on to. And so there's an overload and the predictions of the brain become very unreliable. It is quite unreliable anyway, but when it goes into that massive overload of having to predict so many things because there's such uncertainty in us, in our lives, it becomes very, very hard for the brain. And our bodies become very stressed. So it's really, really important to, as we know, is to go to the heart, because the heart has got this capacity to direct and filter and give us the clarity. You know, this thing of the gut feel and the intuition. And so now, more than before, it's really important for us to link into our intuition and to go with the gut feel and to trust that and to start directing our brain through, you know, putting ourselves in situations that may not be easy, gently, kindly, but not to avoid life, to try and defend against life, to try and defend against the change, because it doesn't work. We are safe, but we have to start functioning from the heart intelligence. And that is what is happening. You know, that is the evolutionary path that we're on. It's a given. The only choice is, are you going to choose that sooner than later, or are you going to still limp along and try and do the old? Or are you willing to choose something different? And during this time, especially now from the 20th, but intensifying from the 25th until the 28th of this month, there's a great opportunity for us to choose state of being's perceptions, to hold a balance that will create so much for our future as a humanity. And so I would ask you to do it for yourself. Do it for the future generations. Do it for our planet. Do it for our beautiful Mother Earth. Let's do it for each other. Let's hold a positive focus. Let's be real. Let's be authentic. But let's know and start to claim the power that we have and that we are divine. And so with many blessings, Elizabeth.